Welcome back, everyone. I thought I'd make a quick kind of live recorded video today of my reaction and initial thoughts on some newly presented and revealed information from Season of the Splicer, mainly surrounding the new exotic armor and I guess seasonal weapon and my thoughts on such. So here we have on Bungie's website, we have our exotics, and we're going to start by talking about the Star Eater scales. Each of these exotics, they don't actually specifically say what they do. Like, this isn't going to be the in-game description, I believe. They're kind of just teasing what they do, which is interesting. So it gives us some room to speculate here. So for this exotic, this is a hunter exotic that is clearly boots. And it says that it allows hunters to feast upon orbs of power, charging their super more quickly and making it more potent. So what does this mean? To me, the way I interpret this is this means when you pick up an orb of power, aka feast upon an orb of power, it will reduce your super cooldown, because it says that it will charge their super more quickly, not that you gain more off of the orb. So the way I think this is going to work is you're going to pick up an orb and then it is going to start reducing your super cooldown, probably, and I hope, for a limited amount of time. There's always the potential that it could just be reducing your super cooldown inherently for the rest of the super until you get your super, which would be pretty ridiculous. It'd be kind of like boosting your intellect stat after picking up an orb of power, and I really hope that's not the case with this. But otherwise, it seems like it has the potential to you pick up an orb and then it reduces your super cooldown after you pick up the orb for a certain amount of time. It does also say making it more potent. I can only assume this means when you cast your super, perhaps after picking up an orb of power, it will actually deal either more damage or have more damage resistance. Of course, there is the slight potential of it meaning you'll have a longer duration, but that wouldn't exactly make sense for some of the more shutdown super abilities, like of course the Stasis Revenant super, or even one of the Tether subclasses as well, or Blade Barrage. That doesn't really make sense for those. So the way I see this is perhaps it's going to make it deal more damage, which seems the most likely for the PvE aspect of these. Or of course it'll also make it so that you get more DR. Those are the two main elements of the super, and I think it has to be one of those two. I'm hoping once again that this effect will only take place shortly after, like you have a window of time after picking up an orb of power, not just, hey, you picked up an orb of power at some point earlier before getting your super. Now when you cast your super, it's going to be better. I'm really hoping again that there are time periods that you have that these effects are active, and it's not just a blanket active bonus after again fulfilling the requirement, which is picking up the orb of power. This exotic kind of concerns me simply because we've seen a lot of super gaining exotics. We've had them many times, and I feel like we've ran into problems with nearly all of them. Look, right now we have Geomags with Chaos Reach, and that is a problem. I feel like this treads on potentially reintroducing problems we've already experienced, and I'm just not a fan of super gaining exotics to begin with. I don't find that they are the most fun or exciting or unique in my opinion. So I'm kind of concerned for these, but hopefully it's not game breaking by any means. The next exotic is very interesting, and I actually think this is going to be very strong. They're called the Path of Burning Steps. This is a Titan exotic, boots of course, that converts solar eliminations into increased weapon damage and makes them more difficult to lock down with stasis. So that's really interesting. The first part that we can kind of take something away from is that it's converting solar eliminations, that is the keyword, into increased weapon damage. We have another exotic that does something similar. I'm not too familiar with it, but I believe it's on the Warlock. When you get, I think it's arc kills, will give you essentially a boost of damage. I'm not sure how long that lasts for. I'm not, again, the most familiar with it, but it seems like this is a similar concept where we're going to be able to use a solar weapon on the Titan, get an elimination, so that means an assist as well. So you put a shot on someone and then you're going to get increased weapon damage. I'm not sure how long that'll be for. I'm really hoping that, again, it's a limited time, kind of like a buff that you get that will run out at some point and not just persistent weapon damage until your next kill. That wouldn't be very good. I think that's way too powerful. But again, there's a lot of really good solar weapons, so you're going to be able to take advantage of that very easily. We have Igneous Hammer right now. We have Fellwinter's Lie. I feel like those are two weapons that are very widely used already, so getting elims with those will just be able to allow you to just turn on more 2-taps with the 120s right now that we have in the current meta, and I don't believe they're going to go away next season either. Even though they're getting a slight nerf, you're still going to be able to 2-tap, and this is yet another damage increase that's going to enable you to do that. The second part of this exotic is pretty interesting as well. It makes them more difficult to lock down with Stasis. Now, I'm not exactly sure what this means. I'm going to assume that this isn't going to be complete immunity to Stasis abilities because it says more difficult to lock down. But what I do think is if we think of the collective Stasis abilities and their effects on a player, how would that be reduced? So first thing I think of is maybe freeze duration. That could perhaps be brought down. Maybe even the fast freezes like the cold snap become even quicker freezes, like lower duration of freeze. Or the long freezes maybe even become fast freezes. So they go from the long freeze and become what the cold snap is now. That would be really interesting. The other aspect of this is that, of course, it can perhaps tone down the stacks of slow you get. That's the other aspect of Stasis that essentially has some sort of gradual effect. That's the only other thing that I can really think of. Maybe when you're slowed, the duration is taken down and maybe there's less stacks applied to you. So again, something like Durance, if that hits you when getting slowed and has about a 4-second duration of slow effect, if I'm not mistaken, that would be brought down to maybe 2 seconds. And then also perhaps there's not as much stacks of slow applied to you, so you're not getting closer to being frozen. There's a lot of different aspects that this could affect, but Stasis resistance, I'm sure, is something that people are going to be looking forward to. And I think this exotic will replace Dune Marchers on Stasis Titans, simply because Dune Marchers isn't giving you the extended slide. Sure, it's giving you more sprint speed, but you already have that extended slide and the melee to get you turbo movement to begin with. This exotic makes you resilient to Stasis in some way, shape, or form, whether it be slow stacks, whether it be slow duration, or freeze duration. One of those three, any of them is going to be valuable, and on top of that, it's going to allow you to use weapons you are already using to get damage buffs. Yet another damage buff. I gotta say, I'm not a fan of the first part of this exotic. I think this exotic is too giga impact for my liking, simply because it's yet another damage buff that doesn't, as far as I know based on the wording here, require a kill. I mean, damage buffs, even that they do require a kill, it's getting a bit out of hand in my opinion. There's too many damage buffs in the game, and this is yet another avenue to another damage buff to just be highly impactful. I think the latter part of this exotic, if it was done significantly enough, is enough already. Stasis resistance and kind of being able to turn off or dilute another subclass series simply by putting on an exotic is good enough and powerful enough in my opinion, and still valuable enough for, I think, many. But with both, I can see this being a top pick. Lastly, we have the Warlock's Boots of the Assembler, so they're all exotic boots here. Condenses a Warlock's Rift's healing or empowering energy into projectiles that seek out their allies to bless them with noble benefits. So this one actually has thrown me for the weirdest kind of impression. I don't really know what to expect here. Condenses a Warlock Rift's healing or empowering energy. What I think this means is maybe that means when you cast the Rift, it's instead of maybe putting down a Rift, or maybe still putting down the Rift, going to start shooting out the noble round like buffs or projectiles. And the reason why I say this is because it says noble benefits. This to me reads as it's going to be like shooting out a noble round when you cast one of your rifts, and it's going to try and seek out teammates. Maybe it'll do multiple of them for teammates all around you and give them the buffs of either your healing or empowering perhaps, or it just gives them exactly like a noble round like Lumina would. The way I see this again is Warlock casts Rift. It might replace the Rift because it doesn't say that it replaces. It says condenses, so it could replace it, but because it doesn't say outright replacing the Rift, I think there's a high chance that you could place the Rift and then actually after placing the Rift or on the cast, it'll shoot out noble rounds towards your teammates and also give them that Lumina noble round style effect of a damage buff and some healing. So this is actually a very, very unique exotic, and I think that's really, really cool. Lastly, we have the exotic Stasis sidearm. We kind of saw a little bit about this in the trailer. There's nothing really much to go on for this, but what I'm going to say is what concerns me about this exotic is this is no longer the same as an ability that has a cooldown. Sure, there might be an activation requirement. I'm not sure what that activation requirement is. Some people are thinking you have to get multiple kills. I'm not sure, but again, having a weapon that, you know, weapons are the thing in Destiny that have unlimited uptime. Not other abilities might have uptime, but the weapon itself is always up. Having the potential to freeze with that concerns me, because this is no longer an ability that has a strict cooldown and penalty for using incorrectly. This is a weapon that has 100% uptime, and so long as it has that, you have the ability to try and, even if it does have that activation requirement, fulfill that and then freeze. And like I said, to me, that concerns me. I think that's where Stasis might, for me personally, not that it hasn't in the past, but really get out of hand. I've been someone that enjoys Stasis. I like the idea of it, even though I disagree with some of the execution. It is getting to a better place, but something like this, again, a weapon with 100% uptime, as other weapons do, with the ability to freeze, even with an activation requirement, to me personally concerns me. Anyways, guys, that is my first impressions of all of the kind of teasers or first look of the exotics coming in the upcoming season of the Splicer. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.